Hello, this is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com, and today we're going to be looking at 3 belt offerings from Core Essentials. Core Essentials has been a company that really has taken the market by storm. They have a lot of great offerings when it comes to belt options that you're able to choose from. And from what I've seen, a lot of people might get confused with which offerings they have and what might be right for them. So in this video, I want to kind of show you what they kind of have to offer, like a few different categories of what they have, and maybe give you a better understanding of what might be right for you to be able to purchase. So just to back up a little bit, Core Essentials is a really cool company. They're still fairly new to the market in comparison to other brands that have been around, but they have a lot of specific things in their technology that have really made them stand out from the crowd. The main thing that they're known for is their TrackLine system. What the TrackLine system is, instead of using conventional belt holes, they kind of have this little quarter-inch incremental adjustments for your belt line that you could choose that you're able to use for the adjustment of your belt line. The reason why that's incredibly valuable, specifically for someone who's a concealed carry holder or just carrying a gun in general, is that anytime you're in an environment where you're trying to be a little bit more low profile, instead of having to like open up your belt and then find the next hole and adjust it, there's literally just a little tab that you press. It opens it, it tightens it, and it makes it very, very simple to use, and also makes it very low profile. So when I'm usually in synagogue, in shul, and I'm dressed up in a more like religious, more structured attire, you definitely don't want any attention drawn to yourself in that kind of environment. So having something that you can just kind of adjust with literally the tap of a finger and being able to use that kind of system, I think is something that's very beneficial and I've really come to enjoy. So just to be able to get an idea, we're going to be looking at 3 different belts that they offer. One is, from what my understanding is, they don't really market it as a gun belt. It's more of like a dressy belt, but this has kind of been the most common belt I've been using for undercover dressing and using it as a gun belt. Again, it's not something I feel that they advertise specifically as a gun belt. However, I've been using it as a gun belt for well over a year now and haven't had any issues with it, and I very much love it. Their next belt is more of like their first step into the tactical world. This is their tactical belt. Now, something to be aware of is that the dress belt and the tactical belt are both in 1.5 inch sizing. So the actual width of the belt is 1.5 inches. That's kind of the most standard, most common belt size you're going to have in regards to width of the actual belt. This is much more rigid, much more rigid, much more sturdy, and is definitely going to escalate into the gun belt world when it comes to carrying a firearm. And then their most newest offering is their Garrison belt, which is a 1.75 inch, so it's wider. If you could see in comparison to between the two, it's definitely wider and is much more for getting into that duty use kind of setup and much more a rugged and durable kind of lineup. They also have different buckle offerings we're able to choose from to be able to like accommodate that kind of style. So this is kind of the 3 options that we're going to be looking at. So in the past, I've actually made a video on this specific belt. This is a belt I've been using for a very long time, almost every single day, and especially in environments where I want to be dressed a little bit more low profile and not draw too much attention to myself. This is like their leather belt. It's a very nice leather belt, very high quality. Again, this is the 1.5 inch offering, and you could see the inside of it having that TrackLine system that you're able to use. And just using this belt as a demo, when you slip the belt into the belt loop, you'll start hearing clicks. Each one of those clicks is a 1/4 inch adjustment to be able to fit to yourself. It makes it very comfortable and easy to use. And then you can see on the bottom here, there's that tab that you can just tap with your fingers or just pinch, and then you're able to loosen it and close it and make it tighter. The best part about it is that if you're trying to be like kind of more, again, like low profile about it, I can hold down that clip while I'm tightening and it's not gonna make any noise, right? If I were to let go of that and you wanna hear those clicks, so you wanted to get like a confirmation that it's actually working, then you could do that as well. But the point is that if you're trying to be quiet, you're able to be quiet when you're making those adjustments. So this has been very beneficial, especially if you're carrying appendix, where you could be standing up and going to sit down, and then obviously your holster kind of dig into your body. And then while you're sitting down, I would just press that button so it loosens up, and then I can just get comfortable. And then as I stand up, I tighten it up again, and it just works really nicely for having a concealed carry belt. So for the dress offering, this is like for sure, I would definitely go with a leather belt. If you're looking for just a low profile, trying to be covert, good option, this is a great option for you. The next belt option is their tactical line, which again, it still stays in that remaining 1.5 inch category. This is also great that you're able to use in dressing because it doesn't look super tactical, especially because you're able to choose between a lot of other buckles. They have a lot of buckle options and different styles that you could choose from that again, kind of keep it to a more low profile. If you really want to be low profile, you could go with the leather because it's leather and no one looks anything different with it. If you're okay with being a little bit more tactical, but you want something that's much more rigid, again, this is not nearly literally as rigid as this. You could squeeze this as hard as you want and it will not bend at all. They also do have on their website listings for different weight classes of how much it's able to be kind of as like a load bearing thing, which I'm sure they're underselling how strong they're able to be, but they still give their recommended weight balance for each individual belt. This belt is very, very rigid and it has a very strong core, like plastic inline that they use that is really, really strong, very rigid and will not bend on you. Now, there are pros and cons you should be aware of. Now, I'm not going to really call them pros and cons, but things you should really take into account when you're choosing a belt. These belts, when you start going into the tactical line and further up, are very rigid. The pro of that is that it definitely keeps all your gear in place. The con is that if you're going to be someone who's going to be bending down and doing a lot of movement, what it's going to do naturally is that since it's so rigid, is as you bend down, it could just kind of open up the back of your pants just because it wants to retain its form. Again, if you're a gun guy and you're going to the range and whatever, that's a good thing because you want to know that all your gear and all your equipment are going to be in the exact same spot that you've always kept them. So you know your holster is going to be here, you know your magazines are going to be here, and nothing is going to shift. So when you have something like this, it does that because it's very rigid. If you need something with a little bit more flexibility, that's the benefit of their more dress line kind of style belts, where you'll have a little bit more flexibility than these, but that's not the point of what this belt is. This belt is meant to have that rigidity and that strength to make sure that it stays in place and works well for you. So again, this is kind of their other offerings. They have a lot of different belt clips you could choose from, as well as also the same notch adjustment they're able to use to kind of tighten it and adjust it based on your preferences. Now, we're going to go into the next belt, but I also want to go into the how you adjust it and how you set it up. When you get this belt, it's going to be massive. It's a one size fits most, where what that means is that you could tell by the size of this, it's a huge, huge belt. And the way it works, again, the reason why it's so cool is that on the inside of it, I'm going to do a close-up shot of this. You're going to see that there's markings of different sizes based on your setup. Now, I don't want to go super in depth on how exactly it works because I'd much rather you guys get one and read the instructions yourself to really make sure that you're doing it properly. But pretty much you'll find your sizing, pant size on the belt, and then you cut a few inches above that. Then you could attach your belt clip, and then you could just start going from there. Now, I'd recommend going a few inches above what you think your belt line is, because it's much easier to just continue cutting than to go too far, and then you're kind of stuck. So you really want to make sure that you do it right the first time and do it properly. So what you're going to want is probably what some of you guys might have is medical shears. So if you have it in your medical kit or stuff like that, you can use that to cut it, because again, since this is a very rigid, very strong belt, you're not going to be able to get through it with something small. You need a proper knife. I think they recommend serrated, or a very high quality, heavy duty pair of scissors to be able to get through it. And again, I recommend going a few inches above what they recommend, and you can just keep going further down, because again, you don't want to mess it up and then just be stuck with a belt that won't fit you. So that's something that's very important to be able to take note about. The next step up of what they offer is the Garrison belt. This is a new offering on their website of something you're able to get. This goes into the battle belt kind of setup. This is a structured, high quality gun belt. This is really meant for more duty use and more like heavy use. And what it is that this is the 1.75 inch width. So the other two that we looked at is 1.5, which is kind of like the industry standard for belts in general. This one is going to be wider because you want to be able to have more weight on this setup, as well as be able to have more structure for what you're going to be using. Now, a few things to take note. If your regular holster offers a 1.5 inch clip, this is not going to fit, because again, this is 1.75 inches and this is meant for more heavy use. So if you have like a Safariland holster, which is like a bigger holster, you have spare magazines, you have a AR-15 magazine, a medical pouch, a radio pouch, and you want to be able to really load out the system, this is something you could definitely use, and it will be more comfortable than these other offerings. Because it's 1.75 inches, it feels more like it's hugging your body and really fitting you much nicer. And again, having all the extra weight that you might have on the belt, you want something like that to really make sure that you feel secure and know that everything's going to be in place. This is the kind of belt setup that if you have a huge amount of gear, you really want to make sure that things are staying where they are. This could be more for like security guard options, where you kind of set up yourself for the day that you're going to be going to work and really have everything structured in a proper way. They do have another belt offering that's now available on their website that I'd really love to get my hands on, which is their battle belt setup, which is more of an inner and outer belt offering that they're now going to be giving out. So I'm very curious to check that out. But what this is kind of like a step down of having all your gear set up on a very structured platform. Again, it has all the quick adjustments and everything else that you need, which I think is a huge benefit to be able to have, especially if you're going to be carrying a lot of heavy gear. It's not uncommon for me to be carrying a lot of heavy gear and just wanting to be able to loosen it up because you're on break or you're just not doing anything very active at the moment. And being able to kind of like take that strain off your body is very nice. And then right when you're ready, you tighten it back up again, you feel very structured. And it's something very interesting, because until you've had a belt like this on you, you've never really felt like you've had a belt, because most belts that you've probably had is the floppy leather belt belts that kind of just are all they're meant to do is hold your pants up. This is meant to hold your pants up as well as also carry a lot of gear, but it feels very comfortable. You feel like a ring of like security around your body, which again is very nice to be able to have, especially when you know you're carrying a lot of gear. The benefit of also, I think we've spoken about this, I've had a training drill on this in the past, is if you guys have a team of guys that you're working in security together, it's very important that you guys have worked together to learn different skills in training, obviously. However, one thing that's important to point out is I've made a video about having a structured belt means that if you need to drag someone out of a situation or just move someone out of the way, having a rigid belt like this gives you a lot of space to grab onto, and you can really pull someone and know that it stays on their body like very efficiently. So this is something that, again, I think is very good for guys who work maybe in a security environment and are looking to have a quality piece of equipment to be able to carry the rest of their equipment and make sure to do it efficiently. Additionally, something that they offer that comes with the kits, which I think is important, is these belt holders, where what that means is that it's going to add all the extra belt that you might have sticking out. This will go through once you slide it onto your belt and keeps it in place. The reason why that's important is, again, since these belts are so rigid, it's going to protrude out and might have like kind of a printing sticking out of the belt, and you don't really want that. So having this that comes with it slips inside, it keeps everything secured and in place, which I think is great. They also have, if you have like a lot of sharp gear like knives and something else that you're worried it might actually damage the surface of the belt, you could put this on, which just slips onto the belt and again holds everything in place to make sure that it doesn't get damaged. And lastly, another accessory which I think is great is if you have multiples of their belts or multiple buckles and one individual belt, which again is something that you could do, which I think is nice, is you could have this belt clip which just hooks onto the belts. It locks into place and you can hang it into your closet, and it just makes things a little bit more organized instead of having belts just lying around. So this was kind of just an overview of the belts that I have to offer. I was thinking about doing an updated video in the future, but realistically, I've had this dress belt for well over a year, and even on the leather itself, there's no signs of wear because it's not like a regular leather belt where you're looking for the loops and just having all that pressure on that one loophole and then it just damages over time. All the strain is on that trackline system, which is on the interior of the belt, and since it's so rigid and so strong, I've never had any thoughts about needing to replace it because it's very strong. So I realistically don't need to make an update video. These are probably going to last very well for the future, and I'm not very worried about the newer belts like working out because these have worked out very well for themselves. If there's anything that you guys have to specifically ask about, I'd love to make an update video on those questions if you might have them. So feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try to address as many as I can. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.